The signal reached the Confederation fleet as they were preparing the final bombardment sequence. 300 warships, each capable of reducing a continent to ash, hung in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit like a noose tightening around humanity's throat. They had come expecting pleading, perhaps offers of surrender, maybe the desperate bargaining of a species facing extinction. What they received instead would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come, a transmission that would fundamentally alter the course of galactic history and redefine what it meant to be human. Admiral Thexaler watched the communication request ping across his console with something approaching satisfaction. The humans had been silent for 6 standard cycles since the ultimatum, 6 cycles in which they could have evacuated their homeworld, dispersed their population, preserved some fragment of their civilization. Instead, they had remained stubbornly planet-bound, as if their attachment to that single blue sphere meant more than survival itself. It was this irrationality that made them dangerous, the Confederation had decided. A species that loved one world too much could not be trusted in a galaxy of infinite possibilities. They would always remain a threat, always harbor the capacity to upset the careful balance that kept 1,000 civilizations from each other's throats. The face that appeared on the screen was not what Thexaler expected. No president, no military commander, no elected representative of a unified government. Instead, a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing what appeared to be a simple white shirt. Her name identifier read simply, Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of the Very Large Array. A scientist. The Confederation had sent 300 warships, had gathered the combined military might of 47 member species, and Earth had sent them a scientist to deliver their final words. Her voice, when she spoke, carried neither fear nor anger. It was steady, almost gentle, the tone of someone explaining a fundamental truth to a student who had not yet grasped the lesson. This is Earth's final transmission to the Confederation fleet currently positioned in our outer solar system. We have received your ultimatum. We have considered your terms. And we have decided that your answer was sealed the moment you entered our space with weapons charged and threats made. She paused, and something flickered in her eyes, not quite a smile, but close to it. You have made assumptions about us, about who we are and what we value. You have calculated our responses based on the behavioral patterns of every other species you have encountered. You have determined that we are dangerous because we are irrational, because we cling to this single world when the cosmos offers infinite alternatives. And you are correct. We are irrational. We do cling to this world. But you have fundamentally misunderstood what that means. The transmission continued, and Thexaler felt his primary heart begin to beat with an irregular rhythm. There was something wrong here, something his instincts were screaming at him to recognize. You came here believing that the threat of extinction would make us reasonable, that faced with annihilation we would see the logic of your position. You thought we would scatter like sensible beings, preserve our genetics, our culture, our knowledge, even if it meant abandoning our home. You thought survival would override everything else, because that is how your species thinks, how most species think. Survival is the prime directive, written into your genetic code over billions of years of evolution. But you see, we are the species that stayed with the Titanic even after it struck the iceberg. We are the species that refused to leave our wounded behind on 100 forgotten battlefields. We are the species that built memorials to our dead and tended gardens at grave sites and told stories about people who had been gone for centuries. We are humanity, and we remember. Thexaler's tactical officer was trying to get his attention, but he waved her away, unable to look away from the human woman's face. Dr. Chen had shifted slightly, and behind her, through what appeared to be a window, Earth hung in space, photographed from one of their orbital stations. The planet looked so ordinary, so unremarkable compared to the architectural wonders and engineered paradises that dotted the Confederation's territory. Just water and rock and green things growing, nothing special, nothing that justified the stubbornness of its inhabitants. You have studied our history, Dr. Chen continued, her voice taking on a different quality now, something harder beneath the gentleness. You have analyzed our wars, our conflicts, our capacity for violence. You know that we can be brutal, that we have weapons that terrify even ourselves, that we have stood at the brink of self-annihilation more than once in our short history. This is why you deemed us too dangerous to be allowed to spread beyond our solar system. This is why you decided that extinction was preferable to the risk we represented. But what you failed to understand is that our capacity for violence has always been matched by something else, something you have not encountered in your surveys of 1,000 civilizations. The camera pulled back slightly, and Thexaler realized that Dr. Chen was not alone. Behind her, arranged in the small room, were dozens of others. Old and young, different skin colors, different features, some in uniforms, some in civilian clothes. All of them were looking at the camera with the same expression Dr. Chen wore, that same terrible calm. We are the species that sends ships to rescue people we have never met from disasters we did not cause. We are the species that builds hospitals in war zones and feeds refugees from conflicts we played no part in starting. We are the species that will dive into frozen lakes to save a drowning stranger, that will run into burning buildings for people we do not know, that will give our last resources to keep someone else's child alive. We are irrational in our compassion as well as our hatred, and you cannot have one without the other. Something cold was settling in Thexaler's chest, a realization that was forming despite his mind's resistance to accepting it. The tactical display showed Earth exactly as it had for the past 6 cycles. No planetary shields being raised, no defense stations powering up, no evacuation ships launching. Nothing. Just that blue and white sphere, turning peacefully in the void, utterly defenseless before the assembled might of the Confederation fleet. Dr. Chen leaned forward, and for the first time, Thexaler saw the full weight of what humanity was doing reflected in her eyes. You came here to teach us a lesson about power and survival and the necessity of compromise. You came to show us that clinging to one world made us weak, that our attachment to each other made us vulnerable, that our irrational love for this rock and everyone on it was a fatal flaw that you could exploit. And you were right. It is a fatal flaw. We are going to die here, all 9 billion of us, because we will not abandon our home and we will not scatter like frightened prey before your weapons. The communications officer on Thexaler's ship had gone completely still, her appendages frozen over her console. Around the bridge, he could see his crew beginning to understand what they were witnessing. This was not a surrender. This was not even a defiance. This was something else entirely, something that violated every strategic calculation, every game theory scenario, every predictive model the Confederation had run. But here is what you did not calculate, Dr. Chen said, and now her voice carried the full weight of Earth's gravity, the accumulated mass of human history bearing down on every word. Here is the variable you left out of your equations. We are not going to die quietly. We are not going to accept extinction with grace and dignity. We are going to make sure that every species in this galaxy knows exactly what you did here today. We are going to ensure that your names, your cultures, your civilizations are forever linked to the greatest crime in galactic history. Because you see, we have been broadcasting this transmission not just to you, but to every corner of known space. Every species with a radio telescope, every civilization capable of receiving electromagnetic signals, every outpost and station and colony and homeworld within 1,000 light-years is receiving this message right now. Thexaler's tactical officer finally managed to break through his paralysis. Admiral, we are detecting massive energy signatures from Earth's surface. Not weapons, sir. Broadcasting equipment. They have converted their entire planetary power grid to amplification. The signal strength is extraordinary. They are burning their infrastructure to push this transmission as far as possible. Her voice cracked slightly. Sir, they are sacrificing their ability to maintain their civilization just to make sure everyone hears them die. Dr. Chen had stood now, and the camera followed her as she walked to that window, Earth filling the frame behind her. We have included in this transmission everything. Our art, our music, our literature, our science, our history, every beautiful and terrible thing we have ever created. We are giving the galaxy a complete record of who we were, what we built, what we loved, and what you destroyed. And more than that, we are giving them a complete record of you. Every diplomatic exchange, every ultimatum, every calculation you made that led to this moment. We are making sure that when you return to your worlds, when you tell your people that you eliminated a dangerous species, they will know the full truth of what you did. The admiral felt something he had not experienced in decades of military service, genuine fear. Not fear of death, not fear of defeat, but fear of what humanity was doing with their final moments. They were weaponizing their own extinction, turning their annihilation into a mimetic virus that would spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, infecting every civilization that received it with the knowledge of what the Confederation had done. You wanted to make an example of us, Dr. Chen continued, and there were tears on her face now, though her voice remained steady. You wanted other species to see what happens to those who do not conform to your standards, who do not play by your rules. And we are going to give you exactly what you wanted. We are going to be an example. But not the example you intended. Every species that receives this transmission, every civilization that listens to Earth's final broadcast, is going to have to ask themselves a question. They are going to have to decide what kind of universe they want to live in. One where the Confederation can destroy an entire world because it loved itself too much? One where attachment and loyalty and the refusal to abandon home are crimes punishable by extinction? Or one where humanity's last stand means something, where our choice to die together rather than live apart becomes a line in the cosmic sand that others refuse to cross? The tactical display was updating now, showing the spread pattern of Earth's transmission. It was magnificent in its scope, a sphere of information expanding at light speed, carrying humanity's story to every corner of mapped space. The power requirements must have been astronomical. They were quite literally burning their world to amplify this signal, converting everything they had built into one final scream that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. We have 9 hours before your weapons reach effective range, Dr. Chen said, checking something off-screen. 9 hours before you reduce this planet to debris and fulfill your mission. And we are going to spend every second of those 9 hours broadcasting. We are going to tell the galaxy about Maria, who was 5 years old and loved to paint pictures of stars. We are going to tell them about James, who spent 40 years teaching children mathematics and died 2 months ago peacefully in his sleep. We are going to tell them about the Khans, who ran a restaurant in Delhi for 3 generations and made the best curry in the city. We are going to tell them about Antonio, who composed symphonies that made people weep. We are going to tell them about Yuki, who designed gardens that honored the dead. We are going to tell them about every single person on this planet, 9 billion individual stories, 9 billion reasons why what you are about to do is not just murder, but the erasure of irreplaceable complexity. Behind Dr. Chen, the people in the room had begun to sing. Thexaler did not recognize the melody, but his translation software identified it as something called Amazing Grace, a human religious hymn about redemption and grace. Their voices were not professional, not trained, just ordinary people singing together as their world prepared to die. And somehow, that made it more devastating than any weapon humanity could have deployed. You think you are being merciful, Dr. Chen said over the singing. You think that extinction is better than the suffering we would cause if we were allowed to spread across the stars. You have convinced yourselves that this is necessary, that we left you no choice, that our nature made this inevitable. And perhaps you are right. Perhaps we are too dangerous, too irrational, too attached to our hatreds and our loves to be trusted with the cosmos. But understand this, you will carry what you do here today for the rest of your existence. Your children will ask you about the humans, and you will have to explain why you killed them. Your artists will create works trying to process what this moment means. Your philosophers will debate for centuries whether this was justice or genocide. And every time a Confederation ship encounters a new species, they will wonder if you are evaluating them for extinction too. The Admiral found himself reaching for the communications controls, though he did not know what he intended to say. Call it off? Impossible. The political will required to assemble this fleet, the diplomatic capital spent convincing 47 species that humanity had to be stopped, it could not be unwound now. Offer mercy? Humanity had already rejected it, had chosen to die rather than accept the Confederation's terms. There was nothing he could say that would change what was about to happen. Dr. Chen seemed to sense his paralysis. "You cannot stop this, Admiral Thexaler. We know your fleet composition, your command structure, your decision-making protocols. We know that you personally have the authority to abort this mission, but we also know that you will not, because doing so would mean admitting that the Confederation made a mistake. And your civilization does not admit mistakes. You correct them, you adjust your calculations, but you do not acknowledge that your initial assessment could have been wrong. That is your fatal flaw, Admiral. Not irrationality like ours, but an inability to change course once a decision has been made." The singing had spread now. Through the window behind Dr. Chen, Thexaler could see lights appearing across Earth's night side, not the normal city lights but something else, something coordinated. Humanity was lighting fires, billions of them, creating patterns visible from space. Messages written in flame across continents, art created to be seen by the fleet that had come to destroy them. It was beautiful and terrible and utterly, completely irrational. "We want you to see us," Dr. Chen said quietly. "We want you to look at this world as you destroy it and know exactly what you are erasing. We want you to watch as those lights go out, as the fires are extinguished by your weapons, as 9 billion voices are silenced. We want you to carry that with you, Admiral. Every member of your crew, every soldier on every ship in this fleet, we want them to remember Earth's final transmission. We want them to remember that we chose this, that we looked extinction in the eye and decided that dying together on our homeworld was preferable to living under your mercy." The countdown was proceeding automatically now. 5 hours until the fleet reached optimal firing position. The bombardment would take less than 20 minutes once it began. The planet's ecosystem would collapse almost immediately, the atmosphere would ignite, the oceans would boil. Nothing would survive. The Confederation's xenobiologists had been very thorough in their calculations. Earth would become another dead rock circling a yellow star, notable only for the fact that it had once harbored a species too dangerous to be allowed to persist. "But we want to leave you with one final thought," Dr. Chen said, and for the first time, something like hope entered her expression. "You came here because you were afraid of what we might become, what threat we might pose if we were allowed to spread across the stars. You saw our capacity for violence, our technological advancement, our irrational attachments, and you deemed us too dangerous to exist. But in doing this, in making this choice, you have proven that we were never the most dangerous species in the galaxy. You were. Because we, for all our faults, for all our violence and hatred and territorial instincts, we never committed genocide out of fear. We fought wars, yes. We killed each other over resources and ideologies and ancient grudges. But we never looked at another sentient species and decided that their existence was too risky to tolerate." The words hit Thexaler like a physical blow. Around the bridge, he could see his crew processing the same realization. They had come here as executioners, convinced of their moral superiority, certain that they were preventing future atrocities by committing a present one. But humanity had inverted that logic, had turned the Confederation's righteousness into the very thing they claimed to be preventing. "So here is Earth's final transmission, Admiral. Here is what we want the galaxy to know. We die here today not because we were too weak to survive, not because we failed to adapt, not because we could not compromise. We die because we chose to. We chose to stay together, to face extinction as a united species on our homeworld, rather than scatter and survive under the terms you demanded. We chose to make our last act one of defiance, to ensure that our story would be heard, that the truth of this moment would spread faster than your justifications ever could. And we chose to do it with grace, with dignity, with art and music and love, because that is who we were. That is who humanity was. We were the species that could create beauty even in our final hours, that could sing together as the end approached, that could light fires not as weapons but as messages of hope to civilizations we would never meet." The transmission was beginning to break up now, interference from the massive power draw causing fluctuations in the signal. But Dr. Chen's face remained clear, her eyes locked on the camera, speaking directly to every being who would ever receive this broadcast. Remember us. Remember that we were here, that we loved this world, that we refused to abandon each other even when survival demanded it. Remember that the Confederation came here with weapons and threats and the absolute certainty that they were right. And remember that sometimes, being right is not the same as being good. Goodbye, Admiral Thexaler. Goodbye, Confederation Fleet. And goodbye to all the species who will receive this transmission in the years and centuries to come. We were humanity. We lived on a blue and white sphere orbiting an unremarkable star. We created art and science and music and literature. We loved each other enough to die together. And you will remember us long after your own civilizations have crumbled to dust, because we made sure of it. We made absolutely certain that you could never forget what you did here. This is Earth's final transmission. You have sealed your fate, not ours. We chose our fate. You will have to live with yours. The signal ended. The lights on Earth's night side continued to burn. And Admiral Thexaler sat in his command chair, watching a world prepare to die, understanding too late that humanity had won a victory more complete than any weapon could have achieved. They had turned their extinction into immortality, their death into a story that would haunt the Confederation forever. In 9 hours, Earth would be gone. But humanity's final transmission would travel the galaxy at light speed, reaching new civilizations for millennia to come, asking them all the same question that now burned in Thexaler's mind: what kind of universe did they want to live in? The countdown continued. The fleet held position. And across the cosmos, a billion species began to receive Earth's final message, began to hear humanity's last song, began to understand what the Confederation had done and what it meant. The humans had been right about one thing. They had sealed their fate. But in doing so, they had sealed everyone else's as well. Nothing would ever be the same.